the oppressive alien society and the rare, almost mythical presence of a human in that environment. Kalith, the toothless alien servant, embodies the extreme of subjugation in this universe. She is described as pallid, frail, and physically broken in subtle ways, like her missing teeth and hunched posture, which reflect her years of suffering. Her appearance is not just cosmetic, it symbolizes the dehumanization, or in this case, de-alienization, that slavery and oppression inflict. Her fear and submission are deeply ingrained, formed over countless years of being treated as property rather than as a sentient being. Kalith's environment, the alien palace, reinforces the themes of hierarchy and control. The palace is vast and imposing, designed to dwarf and intimidate those within it, especially those of lower status like her. The corridors are dim, emphasizing isolation and secrecy. Chains are not only literal but metaphorical, representing the bonds of fear, tradition, and societal expectation that hold her in place. She has lived her entire life in the shadows of others, unseen and unheard, a background figure in a world built to showcase the wealth and power of alien aristocracy. The story introduces Lord Heron, an old human aristocrat, as a striking contrast to Kalith's life. Humans are rare in this universe, and their presence among the alien nobility carries weight. Heron's characterization is carefully crafted. He is aged, wise, and dignified, with no overt aggression or arrogance. He carries a cane, a symbol of age and vulnerability, yet his calm demeanor and sharp intelligence give him an air of authority. The contrast between his quiet strength and the alien noble's flamboyant displays of power is deliberate. It establishes the HFY theme. Humans are effective, not through alien-style dominance or intimidation, but through quiet, intelligent, and principled action. Heron's intentions are immediately clear. He seeks Kalith not for profit or status, but because he recognizes her value as an individual. This is an extraordinary concept in the alien society that has reduced her to an object. The moment he addresses her directly, naming her, is pivotal. Kalith has never been acknowledged as a person before. Her identity has always been subsumed under her role as a servant. When Heron speaks her name aloud, it is not only a personal acknowledgement, but a challenge to the societal norms that have bound her. This single act plants the seed of the story's central theme, the transformative power of being seen and valued. The alien noble's reaction also helps establish the social environment. They are startled and unsettled by Heron's interest in Kalith. Their disbelief reflects the rigidity of their hierarchical system and their inability to understand compassion as a form of power. They are incapable of imagining a world in which Kalith has autonomy, which highlights a recurring HFY motif. Humans are disruptive not through brute force, but by defying expectations and redefining social rules. Kalith's internal response is critical to Part 1. Her fear is palpable, yet there is curiosity stirring beneath it. Heron's calm presence and gentle tone begin to crack the wall of terror that has defined her life. This moment demonstrates the human approach to influence. Empathy and patience can achieve what intimidation cannot. By kneeling before her rather than towering over her, Heron physically and symbolically lowers himself, signaling that respect and recognition are not weaknesses, but pathways to connection and empowerment. The pacing in Part 1 is also important. The story does not rush to action. Instead, it lingers on atmosphere, psychological tension, and the characters' subtle interactions. This builds a foundation for the eventual liberation plot, allowing readers to understand the depth of Kalith's oppression and the radical nature of Heron's intervention. The part ends with a hint of possibility. Kalith has been seen, and though she does not yet understand what freedom could mean, the notion has been planted in her mind. Ultimately, Part 1 establishes several key elements: the stark contrast between human and alien culture, the severity of Calith's subjugation, Heron's unique human qualities, and the story's central theme of liberation through recognition and compassion. Of the story moves the narrative from observation and tension in Part 1 to action, depicting the turning point where Calith's life begins to change. The focus shifts from her inner fear and the oppressive palace environment to the concrete mechanism through which her freedom is obtained. The human aristocrat, Lord Heron, negotiating her release. This part emphasizes both the ingenuity and moral courage of humans in contrast to the alien nobility, reinforcing the HFY theme of humanity reshaping a rigid galaxy not through brute force alone, but through intelligence, principles, and respect for individuality. The act of purchase is symbolic and literal. In the alien society, Calith is treated as property, and freedom is exchanged through material wealth. This highlights the deeply entrenched commodification of sentient beings among the Akran aristocracy. However, the story carefully frames Heron's transaction as subversive. He uses the very system designed to oppress Calith to dismantle her oppression. By negotiating with the aliens on their terms, gold, rare artifacts, and valuable human goods, Heron demonstrates a human approach that is both strategic and principled. He respects the reality of the alien system, but bends it to achieve a moral end. This is a key element of the HFY motif. Humans are effective because they understand systems deeply and use creativity and ethics to navigate them. Calith's perspective during the purchase is crucial. She experiences a mixture of fear, disbelief, and hope. For someone whose entire life has been controlled by chains and commands, the notion that a master could deliberately remove those chains is nearly incomprehensible. Her internal struggle is palpable. She has been conditioned to assume that freedom is either impossible or dangerous. The narrative captures her hesitation and incredulity, reinforcing her humanity, or, in her case, her sentience, and setting the stage for her transformation. This allows readers to empathize with her, making her liberation feel earned and emotionally resonant. The Akran nobles' reactions provide insight into alien society and serve as a foil to Heron's character. They are intrigued by his wealth and status, but are baffled and unsettled by his intentions. In their worldview, Calith's value lies entirely in servitude. The idea that she might be freed defies their logic. This contrast between human and alien perspectives emphasizes a recurring HFY theme. Human morality and ingenuity disrupt rigid, hierarchical, and utilitarian systems. The alien's inability to comprehend Heron's motives highlights how humans are unpredictable and unconstrained by the same narrow frameworks, making them powerful in subtle but profound ways. The physical act of freeing Calith is handled with careful attention to symbolism and tone. Heron does not yank the chains or assert dominance. Instead, he whispers, "You are free," and lets the metal fall away. The gentle, deliberate release of the chains contrasts sharply with the clanging, harsh reality of her prior life. The narrative choice to have her stumble and be caught by Heron reinforces the human approach to empowerment. It is not coercive, it is supportive. Her physical stumble mirrors her emotional transition. She is unsteady because she has never experienced freedom before, yet someone is there to help her navigate it. This moment communicates the story's moral and emotional core. True liberation requires both opportunity and guidance. Part 2 also introduces the concept of walking into the unknown. Heron invites Calith to step outside the palace and into a world she has never imagined. This moment is pivotal, representing the threshold between her old life and the life that awaits her. It is a metaphor for human influence. Humans often challenge others to envision possibilities beyond imposed limitations, not through force, but through inspiration and example. This reinforces the HFY theme that humanity's strength lies in encouraging potential, fostering independence, and embodying moral courage. The pacing of this section is deliberate, building tension through negotiation and anticipation, then releasing it with the dramatic moment of freedom. By focusing on both the external dynamics, the negotiation with the Akran nobles, and Calith's internal experience, the story deepens its emotional impact. Readers feel the stakes, understand the societal context, and witness the radical nature of Harren's act. Ultimately, Part 2 establishes the mechanics and significance of Calith's liberation. The story represents a crucial turning point in Calith's transformation, her introduction to the world outside the alien palace, where she experiences freedom for the first time. While Part 2 depicted the mechanics of her liberation through Harren's strategic and principled intervention, Part 3 delves into the emotional, psychological, and cultural impact of that freedom. This section reinforces the central HFY themes of human ingenuity, compassion, and the capacity to uplift others, emphasizing that humanity's power often lies not in weapons or dominance, but in the ability to expand possibilities for those who have been oppressed. The narrative begins with Calith stepping out of the palace, leaving the oppressive environment that had defined her entire existence. For centuries, her life was structured around obedience, servitude, and survival under fear. The palace's corridors, dim and echoing with the footsteps of cruel masters, had become a world unto themselves, a place where curiosity, choice, and self-expression were forbidden. In this context, the external world is portrayed as a riot of color, sound, and life, in stark contrast to the narrow, controlled environment she has known. This dramatic shift symbolizes the liberation of her mind as well as her body. Every visual and auditory stimulus emphasizes that freedom is not only physical, but experiential. The world itself is inviting her to engage, explore, and reclaim agency over her life. Harren functions in this section as both guide and mentor, embodying the uniquely human qualities that enable Calith to navigate this new reality. Rather than overwhelming her with instructions or demanding immediate adaptation, he introduces her gradually to the unfamiliar sensations and experiences of life beyond chains. Through his patient guidance, she observes humans interacting openly in markets, parks, and libraries, engaging in commerce, play, and intellectual exchange without fear or hierarchy. These glimpses reveal the radical differences between human society and the Akran aristocracy. Humans treat one another as individuals rather than commodities, encourage personal growth, and respect the autonomy of others. Harren's presence underscores the HFY motif that humanity's strength lies in moral courage and empathy, and that freedom can be both taught and modeled through example. Calith's internal reactions are central to this part of the story. Initially, she experiences disorientation, fear, and incredulity. The concept of freedom is almost alien to her. She has never exercised choice or experienced life without the constant pressure of authority. The story carefully depicts her hesitation, showing how deeply oppression can shape a being's psyche. Her first attempt to speak, culminating in the simple utterance of her name, is a landmark moment. By saying Calith aloud, she asserts her existence as an independent being for the first time. This act is more than a personal milestone. It is symbolic of the power of recognition and identity, key elements of HFY storytelling. Humans, in this narrative, catalyze profound change simply by acknowledging the humanity or sentience of others, demonstrating that influence can be revolutionary even without violence. The world beyond the palace is also described in a way that emphasizes diversity, opportunity, and vibrancy. Humans and aliens coexist, interacting in ways that are egalitarian and unpredictable from the Akran perspective. This exposure teaches Calith that a life outside chains is possible, that social hierarchies and rigid control are not universal constants. The human city becomes a microcosm of potential, showing that freedom is both practical and enjoyable. This serves as a narrative device to contrast human society's flexibility and adaptability with the rigidity of the Akran aristocracy, reinforcing The HFY message that humans excel because they can innovate socially, morally, and culturally. Moreover, Part 3 emphasizes the gradual nature of transformation. Freedom is not instant or effortless. It requires support, observation, and practice. Heron's mentorship exemplifies the human approach to empowerment, providing guidance without coercion, allowing the learner to grow at their own pace and offering encouragement when fear threatens progress. This approach contrasts sharply with the alien model of control, which relies on dominance, intimidation, and subjugation. By demonstrating the effectiveness of empathy, patience, and ethical leadership, the story showcases a uniquely human strength, the ability to inspire autonomy and self-realization in others. Finally, the section sets the stage for Kalith's continuing journey. Her exposure to the world beyond chains begins to expand her sense of possibility. She recognizes, perhaps subconsciously, that her life is no longer limited to survival and obedience. She can aspire, explore, and even protect herself. The narrative leaves her at a threshold of transformation. No longer a passive, fearful servant, but an emerging individual empowered by both freedom and human guidance. This moment of awakening is pivotal for the story's HFY theme. Humanity's impact on the galaxy is often subtle but transformative, reshaping societies and minds through courage, recognition, and ethical action. The story delves into Kalith's journey of adaptation and personal growth after her liberation, illustrating how humans, through empathy, mentorship, and moral guidance, can empower others in profound ways. While the previous part focused on her initial exposure to freedom and the wonder of a world beyond chains, Part 4 emphasizes the active process of learning, self-discovery, and transformation, highlighting the HFY theme of humanity's ability to uplift, educate, and inspire sentient beings across the galaxy. The first key element in this section is the methodical and patient approach Heron takes in guiding Kalith. Rather than leaving her to navigate freedom alone, which could overwhelm or traumatize her after a lifetime of servitude, he introduces new concepts gradually, teaching her through experience, observation, and gentle instruction. He does not force knowledge upon her, nor does he expect immediate mastery. Instead, he allows Kalith to explore, make mistakes, and build confidence at her own pace. This mentorship highlights a uniquely human strength, the ability to nurture potential through respect and patience rather than through fear or coercion. Heron's guidance contrasts sharply with the alien societal model, which relies on domination, intimidation, and rigid hierarchies. In doing so, the narrative reinforces the HFY motif that humans excel not just through technology or physical prowess, but through moral and intellectual leadership. Kalith's education is multifaceted, encompassing both practical skills and cultural understanding. She learns everyday tasks that humans take for granted, eating without fear, walking among crowds, interacting socially, but she also learns abstract and intellectual skills, language, mathematics, strategy, and history. This broad education reflects humanity's holistic approach to empowerment, emphasizing not just survival or obedience, but critical thinking, creativity, and autonomy. By teaching her to analyze, reason, and express herself, Heron equips Kalith with tools she never had in the palace. This expansion of her abilities symbolizes the potential of freedom itself. It is not merely the absence of chains, but the presence of choice, knowledge, and opportunity. A central theme in Part 4 is Kalith, discovering her inner strength and agency. Her body, previously considered weak and fragile by the alien aristocracy, proves resilient when properly nurtured and encouraged. She learns not only to stand and walk without fear, but also to assert herself in social situations. The story describes how she faces emissaries from the Akran nobles attempting to reclaim her. Unlike before, when fear would have caused her to shrink and submit, she now confronts them confidently, declaring, "I am not yours. I belong to myself. This moment is significant because it illustrates that freedom is not solely a gift from another. It becomes real only when the individual claims it for themselves. Here, humanity's role is catalytic. The human mentor provides opportunity, but true empowerment comes from the learner embracing autonomy. Part 4 also emphasizes the psychological transformation Kalith undergoes. Years of oppression had instilled self-doubt, fear, and learned helplessness. Under Haren's mentorship, these patterns begin to unravel. She learns to trust herself, make decisions, and take responsibility for her actions. This psychological growth is essential to the HFY theme, demonstrating that humans can instill courage, self-worth, and resilience in others, even in societies where oppression is normalized. The narrative highlights the subtleties of this transformation. Kalith does not instantly become fearless or omnipotent. She grows gradually, illustrating that empowerment is a process, not an event. Moreover, Part 4 reinforces the contrast between human and alien values. The Akrans measure Kalith's worth through subjugation, productivity, and fear-induced obedience. Humans, on the other hand, measure potential through autonomy, curiosity, and moral agency. Haren's mentorship embodies this philosophy, teaching Kalith that her life is defined by her choices, not by others' expectations. This ideological difference is central to the HFY narrative. Humanity's greatest power is the ability to reshape thinking, nurture independence, and challenge oppressive systems not through domination, but through example and ethical action. Finally, Part 4 prepares the narrative for Kalith's ultimate independence. She moves from being a passive recipient of freedom to an active participant in her life. Her growing confidence, skills, and moral clarity set the stage for her to navigate challenges, assert herself, and live fully in a world that had previously been unimaginable. The section emphasizes that true liberation involves education, empowerment, and the cultivation of self-confidence, values that humans uniquely exemplify in the story. The story represents the culmination of Kalith's journey from oppression to autonomy, illustrating the full impact of humanity's influence on individuals and societies. While the earlier parts established her fear, the act of liberation, her first experiences of freedom, and the lessons in self-confidence and practical skills, Part 5 focuses on the outcome, a sentient being fully claiming her life, agency, and identity. This section not only resolves Kalith's personal arc, but also reinforces the HFY themes of human compassion, ingenuity, and transformative influence. At the heart of Part 5 is Kalith's emotional and psychological transformation, after weeks of guidance, training, and exposure to a world radically different from the oppressive palace. She has internalized the lessons Haren provided. Her fear and hesitation have been replaced with confidence and curiosity. She can now move through human cities and communities not as a shadow, a property, or a passive observer, but as an autonomous individual. This shift is more than symbolic. It reflects a deep understanding that freedom is active, not passive. Kalith is no longer given freedom, she embodies it. This distinction is central to the HFY message. Humans do not simply liberate others through force. They catalyze transformation by showing a path to self-determination. The story emphasizes the tangible ways Kalith exercises her autonomy. She walks openly through the streets, interacts with humans and aliens alike, and participates fully in society. Her chains, left behind in the dust of the alien palace, serve as a potent visual metaphor. The physical remnants of oppression are gone, and with them, the psychological barriers begin to crumble entirely. The narrative conveys that freedom is both external and internal. Liberation involves reclaiming one's body, mind, and spirit. Kalith's ability to navigate her environment confidently demonstrates her complete reclamation of self, highlighting a key HFY motif. Humans inspire. Resilience and courage in others through example and mentorship. Heron's role in Part 5 shifts subtly. He is no longer the guiding hand that teaches her the basics of life beyond chains. Instead, he becomes a supportive witness to her independence. His pride in Caliph reflects human values of mentorship, empathy, and moral satisfaction derived from seeing another flourish. Unlike alien systems of control that rely on dominance or coercion, Heron's influence manifests in empowerment, illustrating humanity's unique capacity to nurture potential. This also reinforces a narrative principle common in HFY stories. Human strength is not always physical or technological, but moral, psychological, and relational. A critical element of this part is Caliph's assertion of identity. Beyond practical skills, education, and confidence, she now possesses a sense of purpose and self-worth. Her life is no longer dictated by fear, obligation, or others' desires. This newfound agency is evident in her interactions with emissaries from the alien nobility. Where previously she would have cowered or complied, she now confronts these representatives with dignity and clarity, declaring, "I am not yours. I belong to myself." This declaration is both a personal and ideological victory. It symbolizes the triumph of individual autonomy over systemic oppression and the power of ethical human influence in challenging entrenched hierarchies. Part 5 also emphasizes the emotional dimension of liberation. Caliph experiences joy, wonder, and curiosity in ways that were impossible in her previous life. She smiles genuinely, laughs freely, and explores her environment without fear of punishment. These experiences illustrate that freedom is not merely the absence of chains, but the presence of choice, safety, and opportunity. Humans, represented by Heron, provide the conditions for such a life not through coercion or domination, but through guidance, respect, and encouragement, qualities that alien society cannot comprehend. This contrast highlights a recurring HFY theme. Humanity's impact on the galaxy stems from their moral integrity, adaptability, and ability to inspire growth in others. Finally, Part 5 closes Caliph's narrative arc while reinforcing the story's broader message. Her past as a servant remains a shadow in memory, but it no longer defines her. She has stepped fully into a world where her potential is limitless, embodying the transformative power of freedom guided by human values. Heron's quiet satisfaction underscores that the most profound influence humans can have is the creation of independence and self-realization in others, rather than domination or conquest. The story leaves readers with a resonant image: Caliph, unchained and radiant, walking confidently into a life of possibility, a testament to the unique strength, compassion, and ingenuity of humanity in the galaxy.